So now we'll get into the F&P part of it. The fumigation management plan, I'm sure most of you are aware of this, and I'll try to move through this fairly quickly too. I've got an evaluation phase we're going to talk about a little bit, and preparation phase, which is the majority of what the F&P deals with. Application and exposure, aeration, and then autopsy. So on evaluation, I assume most everybody in here is dealing with grain fumigations. We've got a different evaluation form for the different types of fumigations that we do, structural or space or grain fumigations. So this is a form we just use that every site we go to is different, every grain bin is different. So we have to go through and evaluate it based on what the new set of criteria is for the task at hand. So we want to record all this information. It just helps the guys go out and make sure they're looking at everything and being consistent on how we approach fumigation. Obviously, we're going to record the type of insect it is, and starting with the insect first. And also, we're going to look at the evaluation do an evaluation of the site and surroundings. What kind of neighbors, where your neighbors are located, the site in general as far as the structures, where inhabited areas are going to be. A lot of time when we're doing grain fumigation, there's other parts of the plant that have to be in operation while you're doing a fumigation. So people need to be in those areas to keep them operating. So it's important for us to understand what the risks are, where the people are going to be, and get that stuff recorded. Also the applicator and bystander exposure risks. Something we're looking at on a fumigation side is we have the capability to be able to introduce fumigants from outside the structure with pressurized cylinderized gases. So if it is the right fit, both economically and from a safety perspective, that's certainly the avenue we'll go as far as an applicator. Bystander, we have to take a look at the facility and say, I've gone and looked at structures before and said, this is just not a good idea to fumigate this building. We know it's not going to hold gas well. You're directly adjacent to, a convalescent home or a school, for example. So we've got to make sure that it's the right thing to do. Not can we do it, but should we do it. Temperature management, understanding what the temperature is in the structure and certainly in the grain. I'd say the optimum range, if you're aggressive about getting it cooled down and you still want effective fumigation, is about 50 to 55 degrees. On-site JHA is a part of what we do too. It's job hazard analysis, job safety analysis, whatever acronym you want to give it. But it's an analysis of the process, the sealing procedures, dealing with the gas. This is something that we want to identify, not just for ourselves, but for our customer, that they are ensuring we're looking at what we're doing here and being as safe as we can about it. So sealing the structure takes quite a bit of time. What we're trying to achieve is gas tight. We want to be able to take the bin or the building, turn it upside down, fill it up with water, and hope that it holds. That's our objective. So we want to hope that it stays on for the entire exposure time, whether it be 24, 36, 48 hours even. If you're doing a grain bin fumigation at 45 degrees, it needs to stay on for maybe 2 weeks. So that is a challenge to get the second thing done and then accomplish the third thing as well, because as being a commercial fumigator, we want to leave your facility looking as good as it was when we showed up, just less live critters. So getting it to come off, we use some special tapes and adhesives that we found that work really well under all our conditions. There's going to be a lot of challenging sealing that needs to happen. A lot of aerial lift work, tall lift work, dirty areas where it's not easy to seal, but it's important to seal. So, and then depending upon the structure, there's some challenges with getting grain bins sealed up to where they're tight. And you've got the application phase, pellets, tablets, sulfurofluoride, ecofum, and vapor floss, all inherently different as far as the hazards that can come about. You've also got potential confined space entry with pellets and tablet applications. I usually recommend if you're doing those types of applications and you're not turning the grain, that you go into the bin so you can see what's going on. And just to reiterate why the protein monitoring is so important, if you've got to have good calibrated equipment as well. If you've got a difference of, on the warehouse beetle from a low range to high range of 600 and some ounce hours, that's a lot of parts per million accumulation. That if you're not monitoring the gas concentrations and the temperature, especially on an SF job or any job for that matter, but especially with SF, you're destined to have a failure on that. The differences in these rates, how temperature can affect, just to give you an example, at 70 degrees, our control, warehouse beetle optimum control, on a high rate is almost 1200 CT, concentration and time. If it were 95 in the same structure, 521. So less than half of the amount of fumigant to do the job. And then we come to aeration, and we have the aeration portion of it. Removing the sealing materials is at least 10 times faster than putting it up. It does require 2 trained persons to enter the structure. Knowing your facility intimately, where to turn on powered ventilation, and so forth. Certainly what we want to avoid is any incident that's going to make us get the negative publicity that we don't want. This is a popcorn facility, popcorn storage structure fires. This is a grain bin fumigation. And this is an example of explosiveness of phosphine. This was just phosphine gas in high enough concentrations that it spontaneously ignites. And then autopsy. We want to make sure after we get everything aerated that we take a look at what we've got. This is not dirt. This is dead, was it foreign grain beetle or flat grain beetle? Fungus feeders. So large numbers of fungus feeders. We want to see where they fall out, because that's a gap in your IPM. That's a gap in your bin that those things are getting into. And a gap in your conditioning, because it's a symptom of a condition. So your grain storage conditions.